Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this series of talks promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am so happy here to be the host for this talk with our very special guest, Glaucio Pessoa. Glaucio today will be discussing about spiritual music. I invite all of you who are here with us doing this talk to join me in a short opening prayer. And with that, let us just close our eyes, open our hearts, open our minds to all that is good, to connect with God and all the spirits of light, our benefactors who are here. They're here with us. They guide us during our entire journey on earth. And we ask that all of us may be blessed. May our dear friend Glaucio especially receive the inspirations he needs during this talk, and that all of us be touched by his words. So be it. Glaucio, welcome.
Hi,
Welcome
Marcia.
to
Good
our
morning.
hi. Welcome to our talk to this Saturday, and I hope you're doing well. It is
Thank
so
you.
good to have you here to this very interesting topic, all about spiritual music. So thank you so much, Glaucio.
No problem.
Before Glaucio begins his talk on spiritual music, I would like to introduce him formally. Glaucio is a Spiritist volunteer for over 37 years. He's currently serving as the Vice President of the Christian Spiritist Community of Atlanta. He is deeply interested in Spiritist activities, especially those revolving around media, English translations, and music. Professionally, Glaucio holds two master's degree, but one in business administration and another in electrical engineering. And before we start, I wanted to please have a friendly reminder to all of you who are here today to send your questions, your comments using the chat windows. Glaucio will reserve some time to address your comments and your questions once he concludes his presentation. So, Glaucio, would you mind starting?
Oh, yeah, with pleasure. And by the way, thanks so very much for introducing me, Marcia. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And for us to have a little conversation about two very interesting aspects of our lives, music and the spiritual world. And the interesting thing about both is that both are such an enormous part of our day to day activities, both as incarnate spirits and immortal souls as well. I'd like to start our talk with a very interesting story. And this story is in the book Boa Nova in Portuguese, or Good News. Hopefully, it's going to be translated into English soon, which is pretty much a collection of stories of events that happened during the time of Jesus, as during Jesus' mission on earth, and afterwards as well. The last chapter, which is chapter 30, it tells us about Mary. And according to the Spirit, Umberto de Campos, who narrates the different stories in the book, Mary continued working. She continued doing great charitable work after Jesus ended his mission amongst us here on the material realm. And after 30 years, then came time for her also to return to the spiritual world. And due to her merits, due to her hard work, and also to the level of the spirituality that she has, she was actually received in the spiritual world by a multitude of spirits. Now, those are not just any kind of spirits. Those are what Umberto de Campos qualifies as angelic spirits. So she was welcomed by a caravan of very high spirits. However, and she was to be conducted. She was supposed to migrate with them to the higher planes in the spiritual world. However, before she would do that, she asked them to travel with her, to accompany her to Rome. Reason being is that those were some of the initial persecutions against Christians, and she wanted to make sure that she would go there and give those spirits who were going to be martyrs a little bit of inspiration. So she goes to a prison, and that's a very interesting part of the story because she talks to every one of them, and there were like hundreds of people. Now, people were being unjustly they had been unjustly arrested, and they were sentenced to death, right, and horrible deaths uh, in the arena. So, and then she prays with each one of them. Before she departs, she does something very interesting. She sees a young lady who's crying, who's very sad. She approaches this young lady and she inspires this young lady to sing. Now, the the woman, the young woman, she never realized why she felt like singing, but she started to sing. And as she started to sing, all the other prisoners, and they were like, young, the old, men, women, children, and they were all started to sing as well. And they felt revigorated. They felt better and ready for their sacrifices. So it is very interesting here because Mary, in her understanding, she knew that how to leverage music to provide comfort to those spirits who were going through very unjust, well, unjust in our eyes, right? But going through some very tough tribulations. So we see that music in that particular example, it goes beyond just sounds, rhythms, and how it impacts the soul. So today we're going to talk a little bit about this, about spiritual music, um, and with a focus on, of course, material music and how it affects us, but also on music in the spiritual world. So let's talk about music here, the way we understand it. So, as incarnate spirits, or reincarnated spirits, I should say more precisely. So, any kind of instrument that we listen to, may those be brass, those be strings, that may be percussion, even electronic instruments, they operate by generating vibration, physical vibration. I'm still talking about very physical vibration, and that physical vibration it travels through some kind of medium up to our ears. Once it enters the ears, it goes through the ear, what's called the ear canal, which is pretty much just the name implies. It's like a tube. And the sound, the vibrations, in this case, in the air already inside of the ear, the ear canal, that's air, it makes the tympanum, or what we also call eardrum, vibrate. So this is where you can see the engineering behind this. There are three small. There is one's called the hammer, anvil, and the stirrup. And those are ossicles. Those are very small bones. And the purpose of those three bones working together is they amplify the sound. They amplify the sound up to 22 times. After the sound is amplified, physical sound is still, then it is sent to the cochlea, the inner ear, and more precise, the cochlea, and that's where that physical, that vibration, mechanical vibration, is converted into electrochemical signals and sent to our brain. It is an amazing piece of engineering, extremely well designed. And we see here that this is, however, as incredible as it is, it's still so superficial because in the book Spiritism in the Arts by Leon Denis, so music is actually expressed in different other manners. And there are some forms of music that we do not recognize yet. So, and believe it or not, we can see this kind of harmony. And the spirit in the book, Spirit des Milliards, the spirit of Massenet, uh, the spirit describes the harmony of the universe and compares it to a symphony. So there's this whole symphony, this whole harmony in the universe where we can see how everything ties together. We see galaxies, enormous galaxies, and with billions of stars, and there's perfect harmony in that in the whole set. And also we see, as Kardec mentions in the spirits book, we see small animals, minuscule animals that work together, and by working together over millennia, they built reefs, islands, and continents. So we see here there is this parallel between the harmony of the universe and a perfect symphony, right? So, and even in us, not everybody is a musician. I love music, and I play the guitar. I'm very amateurish, but anybody can produce sounds. Anybody can hum a music. Now, some people are gonna hum music better than others, but everybody has this innate ability of producing producing music. So different, different abilities. And now together with that, and that's still we're still talking about the physical realm. So together with that, now we see that there is this combination of the harmony of our thoughts, the harmony of our will, right? So we see that our thought is like a creative, is like a harmonizing element. When we build, when we take care of ourselves, when we contribute to the world, to those around us, we're kind of like building harmony. It's kind of similar to be creating music, right? Because you have this harmonizing effect. And we're still learning a lot about how our thoughts, how the vibration, how the harmonizing of our will, how the harmony we provide uh, with the energies that we vibrate, how those affect the universe. However, we gotta keep in mind that that's part of us, and that's a way for us to contribute to the world, at least to the vicinity of where we are. I mean, we are not at a level in which we can impact the whole earth. At least I am not. We are not a level in which we can impact the whole earth. At least I am not. But this music, this harmony that we produce with our minds, with our thoughts. This is part of this great symphony as well that we're still getting to understand. This music of the universe that gets into our lives in and out in such a way that we just don't perceive. And we see it's kind of like this creative thought that we have. It's can work in both realms. It can both work here, like I mentioned, how we can be constructive uh, in the physical realm, uh, and also how it can also contribute again to the harmony and to the well-being, emotional and spiritual of our surroundings. So always, always for us to think how our thoughts, how we perceive our attitude. It's kind of like, again, it's kind of like this music that we have. Always perceive that we're like producing music, even though none of us can necessarily play instruments, but we're producing this harmony and these vibrations that we are spreading out around us. Interesting enough, Plato mentioned something very, very interesting and very pertinent. He mentioned that music is a moral law. It gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, a charm to sadness, and life to everything. So this is, you see, that was way before the Spirit's book, and we're going to be talking about the Spirit's an excerpt from the Spirit's book a little bit later. But he's already saying that, hey, music is a moral law. It's something that brings morality. It brings gives a soul to the universe, gives a soul to everything around us, wings to our minds. It frees up our minds. And
Glaucio
then
and
in
Glaucio,
conjunction with the whole
sorry to interrupt you. Glaucio, you froze for just a second. Can you go back to when you're talking about referring back again to Plato that he
oh
music gives a soul to the universe because we missed what you're saying.
I know, and I saw that. Thank you, Marcia.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
again, so again, Plato said right before the Spirit's book that music is a moral law. It gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, charm to sadness, life to everything. So you see, we're going to talk about the Spirit's book a little bit later, but Plato was already reminding us of this positive effect that music has inside of us, and also how, indirectly he's saying how we, as being part of the harmony of the universe, we can contribute to music. We can, we can produce music by, without playing an instrument, but just being this harmonizing, have this harmonizing effect, not in the whole universe, but at least in that microcosmos around us. So he continues saying along the same lines that it is the essence of order and leads to all that is good, just, and beautiful, of which is the invisible, but nevertheless dazzling, passionate, and eternal form. I mean, this is so amazing, right? The understanding an advanced spirit like Plato, who bring us this understanding about music, and again, this harmonizing effect that music has. And we see that how music can get us closer to the divine, just like in the story that is in the book mentioned, narrated, I should say, in the book Good Boa Nova, Good News. See the story about Mary and how she was able to help uh, the early Christians with music, singing, right? So. And we see also on another aspect of music is also music is to movement. Music is related to rhythm, is related to constant movement, and we see that also this relationship with the universe uh, that is always moving. Now, if an individual is a musician of any kind of music. It doesn't really matter the what kind of genre that particular musician specializes in. For a musician to be able to interpret this harmony, uh, he or she needs to be in sync. He or she needs to be in sync with this harmony of the universe, to be in sync with the higher vibrations from the spiritual world. Again, independent of the kind of music, we see beautiful music, classical music. Of course, classical music is the most sublime you can listen to. However, any kind of music, be it jazz, be it pop, any kind of music, any kind of musician can tap into this harmony and translate it, as long as that musician is in sync. And conversely, we see music that is very mundane, right? We see very spiritual music, and we see very mundane. And why is it that we see music that is so mundane? Because we are still at a level. We're still at a level, and we have our own free will to decide what we tap into, what kind are we going to be tapping into this harmony of the universe or not, or are we going to be tapping into the day-to-day problems that we face? So we see, for the most part, mundane music. Um, however, we see in us, we have this echo, right? We have inside of us this echo that there is something better, right? And we're gonna get, we know, in the back of our minds, we don't remember, and we act, or we either don't remember or we act like we don't remember. That we're immortal souls, and there's a life after this. There's a harm in the more harmonious life. So music also reminds us of that. Music has this potential to tie us to this other reality, right? This other reality. There's some beautiful pieces of music. Uh, there is this guitarist that who passed away, um, Ray Vaughan, and he has a beautiful piece of music. He's a blues. He was a he's a blues musician, and he there's a beautiful guitar solo by he's well he discovered it, but I'm pretty sure he was inspired. It's called Riviera Boulevard. Those who are listening know about it. They know what I'm talking about. Those who have not listened, please check it out. Riviera Boulevard. It's an amazing guitar solo, and the first time I listened to that guitar solo, I was like, I had never heard anything. Nobody plays guitar like that. Meaning, what I mean is that this is not music. This is not conventional music. This must have come from a spiritual world, the spiritual world. And I was reading an interview with him, and he did mention that he felt inspired. It was like one moment inspiration. He didn't quite remember exactly just how he felt inspired. And he said he's not he's not like a spiritist or a Christian musician. He's a blues musician. And he says, I feel like I am praying as I play this guitar solo. So we see here this capacity that we have to produce, to through music to remind ourselves and others that there is something other, there's something better. And music has an immense message. Music has this potential message that goes beyond words. In the book, The Messengers by the spirit Andrea Lewis, in chapter 32, he has a very interesting narrative. There is another spirit, they were in a room, and another spirit was playing keyboard. And she was playing this amazing, this beautiful tune on the keyboard, and that brought what he described as this divine harmony, and that would go straight to the heart. And all of a sudden, he notes something that was unexpected. He heard, and he actually says uh, he was astonished because he starts to feel, even though the spirit, her name is Maya, she was not singing, uh, or she was not producing what would be classified as sounds. The music had a prayer. So it was like as you're listening to the music was a vehicle for a prayer, right? And it was like, so it was kind of like he says, the melody was impregnated with these words, with this verbiage which was silent at the same time, silent and and engaging and constructive. It was something that was like, even though it was a silent music, they could feel it, but it was something very positive, something that would was very constructive. So this is a very, this is the Messengers, the second book in the series by Andrea Lewis. Very interesting story. I love the series, the 16 books by Andrea Lewis. But definitely, the Messengers is one that I would recommend. So as we progress, right, as we become more spiritualized, then we detach ourselves with this kind of music that is very mundane, that talks about our problems, talks about any kind of very physical so we're gonna learn as we get. I feel like
Glaucio,
here's again.
sorry to
So
interrupt
let me go back
again.
here.
You
So
you were
as we evolve, yeah.
Glaucio, you froze again. So let's go back to you just wrapping up your conversation about Andre Luiz, and we start to talk about how we have become more spiritualized and we detach from the so-called mundane music. Can you take it from there? My
Yeah, of
apologies for
course.
that.
No, actually, you know, it was my system was working until yesterday. I couldn't, of course. So as we go beyond, right? I mean, we get detached now because our music, the music in general, most of the music we're gonna listen to is gonna talk about love problems, financial problems, crime. So why this music so common here on earth? Because that's where we are, right? Those are the mundane situations, the material situations that appeal to us. But as we become more mature, so we're gonna be redirecting our thoughts, our interests to other kinds of music that are related to beauty and progress and growth of not only our growth, but the growth of the whole universe. We're not at that stage yet, but we are. And music, I would say arts, they have this means to inspire us. So even though we're not at that level yet, at least we can make an effort to free ourselves from any kind of music that is too mundane, and try to think of music that inspires and reminds us of who we are. Spirit, immaterial, eternal spirits who have a lot to grow, and there's a whole universe there out there. Literally speaking, there's a whole universe uh, for us, and so much room for us to grow. So these harmonious law is all over creation, and all the beings in the that in the universe, they are impacted. From the most infamous, not most infamous, but the tiniest creatures to the highest, the most elevated spirits. They all uh, somehow impacted by this music. And the music has also, as such, we talked about music as a harmonizing, with a harmonizing effect on us, and as such, it brings us health. It is a great helper for health. And there is a very interesting passage here that, believe it or not, is from the Old Testament. It's from Samuel, chapter 16, verse 23. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, Saul was the king, that David took a harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. This whole passage, the whole story behind this passage is quite interesting. It grants a lecture by itself, because there's a whole interpretation of why. Uh, and it's funny because this was not written by a spiritist, believer, but it's talking about evil spirit, right? An evil spirit sent from God, which is quite interesting. God would not send an evil spirit. And again, this is we attract our evil spirits by our own actions. But I mean, again, this passage by itself grants a lecture. But the most important thing here is that David took his harp and played with his hand, right? And just that. So when David took his harp and started playing, just by doing that, that allow the spirit, the inferior spirit, to depart. So we see here this harmonizing effect in us, right, in our surroundings, in our physical health, in our mental health, in our spiritual health. And very interesting also is that if you add to it, to the music, to the melody, if you add words, if you add lyrics, then we can also bring these notions. Also, we can have a way to better, uh, I should say, to better inculcate or better transmit this positive, these positive thoughts, right? This positive. Uh, Sensations and this harmonizing effect to folks. So the music, if you add the music to the music, the lyrics, because then you have the melody, have the harmonious melody, which has again the harmony, and then at the same time you also have the combination of the words that can bring a positive message. In the Spiritist Review from May of 1861, the Spirit Lamina, he he tells us that the serious religious, he calls religious music, it helps elevate the soul and the thoughts. And however, the what you call he calls light music, but we can say, hey, this is more than mundane music. It just affects our nervous system. So he was saying, hey, it just impacts us. There's doesn't go beyond the mundane, as opposed to religious and kind of music, serious religious kind of music. So just think about the example and some other religious lines of thought that apply music, hymns, the positive effect, and in our spiritist centers as well, the importance to help uh, anyone anyone all of us who has music, even some kind of a singing moment, musical moment with singing, or just music in the background. The spiritist centers can attest the impact that music has harmonizing harmonizing the activities. So it is interesting also going back to the book Spiritism in the Arts, that the spirit lesson, it indicates that uh, it is possible, right? If someone is an artist in any kind of artistic field, of course we're talking about music, but any kind of artistic field, there is a good likelihood that that individual is a medium, because again the medium has this ability, right, has serves as this bridge, as this liaison between the spiritual world and the material realm. So you being able to translate this kind of music, this kind of harmony into notes, into physical reality, it requires a certain kind of mediumship. And there is a mission. Musicians, they have this mission of bringing this harmonizing effect. It's quite interesting. If you think about when it was symphony, you think about Beethoven, and before him, and then of course um, and also his master was Bach as well. So whenever you think of Beethoven, so just think of how a spirit like Beethoven had this mission to change our perspective in music. Another famous one here has and it's quite interesting, is Richard Wagner. And an aspect of Wagner's music, I mean, Wagner, Richard Wagner being an incarnate spirit, reincarnate spirit like us, he always has these. Even though there's this spiritual aspect of his music. There's also a material, like if you think about the Valkyries. If you have, you're talking about Valkyries, and you're composing about Valkyries. Now Valkyries, they are semi-material. In the mythology, in the Celtic mythology, Valkyries, they are semi-material, semi-material, like semi-spiritual beings, right? But they dress up in armor. So you think, there's this spiritual side, but it still is tied up to a material aspect. So again, it's an aspect. It is the musician being a medium and receiving this kind of influence from his own material perspective. And interesting enough, I mean, we're not just stuck to those musicians. Other great musicians came, and other great musicians will come. And as humans progress spiritually, as our Earth becomes a more advanced world from a moral standpoint, not technologically, but especially from a moral standpoint, we're gonna see some other great musicians that are gonna be composing to us and bring us more beautiful pieces of music that are actually gonna be helping us connect uh, with the spiritual more and more. Funny that I spent 35 minutes talking about music, and it's spiritual music with a physical focus. Now we're going to talk about music in the spiritual world. And of course, I cannot kick off this conversation without referring to the Spirit's book, question 251. And this is how it reads, the question: Are spirits sensitive to music? So he's talking about spirits in general, incarnate and disincarnate. Uh, the answer, it relates a whole lot more to disincarnate spirits, because this is how the spirits explain it to us. Are you talking about the music created on earth? What is it in comparison to the celestial music, which is of a harmony that has no comparison on earth? Comparing the two is like comparing the wail of a savage to the sweetest melody. Lower spirits may enjoy your music because they are not yet able to appreciate anything more sublime. Music is an endless source of pleasure for spirits due to the impressive development of their sensitive qualities. This, of course, is in regard to celestial music, which is the spiritual, of which the spiritual imagination can conceive nothing more divinely sweet. So it's very interesting here that the spirits are explaining to us that, are you referring to music? Are you referring to your music? Right? And what is it compared to? He and the spirits did not mention spiritual music. They talk about celestial music. They talk about music of the stars, and that has this amazing harmony. There's no comparison on earth. So it's like, comparing the wail of a savage to the sweetest melody. So we see here that the spirits, they say, yeah, you know music, you appreciate music here on earth. However, there is other music, there is more advanced music, there is this celestial music, and I'll go back to it in a little bit later. So there's this celestial music that is so incredible. Of course, us being at the level that we are, we enjoy our precarious music, but there is so much more. So, but going back to also to the whole description of the process of how we perceive sounds on Earth, our sound is created by very rudimentary instruments. Just think about, if you play a guitar is a piece of wood with six strings, right? And a musician does what he or she can to produce the best melody with that limited contraption. So now in the spiritual world, you have other of the means of producing music beyond matter. So how does that work? Right? So basically, as we've been studying, spirits, all of us, right? Spirits, incarnate, disincarnate, we produce radiation. We radiate, right? Sometimes people say, "Hey, vibrations or radiation," right? Whatever, how you want to call it, how you feel more comfortable with that, with the term. So, but just like anything else, there's different qualities. The same way that there's different qualities, there's different qualities, different levels of quality of the music that you can produce. There's different qualities, different gradations in the quality of this particular radiation, depending on the evolution of the being. So, of course, the more materialized we are, then these radiations are going to be weaker and almost imperceptible at the spiritual realm. Now, evolved spirits, they produce a very interesting kind of vibration that is, they are powerful, meaning that they can travel through great distances, right? However, they're also very harmonious. They're very delicate. They're very subtle. So it's kind of like, they are very powerful, but at the same time, they have this soothing effect. So it's kind of like if you compare somebody playing a top violin to somebody playing a toy violin, the quality of the sound is pretty much, that's a good comparison to see spirits, materialized spirits like us compared to higher spirits in the kind of spiritual music they can produce. And just like anything else, right? For a spirit to be able to tune in, right? That's actually the correct term. Just like in a radio, you have to be set to the proper frequency or range of frequencies to tune into a particular radio station. So it is very similar as well. You have to be in resonance. You have to resonate with that frequency. Let's say for a radio station, for you to be able to listen to it. The same way a spirit needs to be in symphony. He needs to also in tune. He needs to resonate to be able to feel those those vibrations, that energy, that radiation. However, um, it is a sensation very different. It is very different for spirits, the kind of sensation that they feel, is not just a sensation of pleasure that we feel when we're listening to music here. It is like an emotional, a lot more emotional, almost like ecstatic sensation. And there's this moral. It's very interesting the way it is described, again in the spiritism and the arts, that it is like a moral sensation. It is very, to us it's kind of hard for us for me to perceive, music having this music, this spiritual music having uh, this moral sensation, like this sensation of moral well-being in a spirit. And while we're talking about spiritism in the arts, so the spirit Massenet, and by the way, Massenet was a composer in the 19th century. And he came back, in the book Spiritism in the Arts. There are two spirits who communicate. There is one spirit whose name is Estet, and that spirit, he talks about sculpture and painting. And there's the spirit Massenet, who talks about music and poetry. Um, if you folks allow me to make a plug, if you have not read Spirit Arts, it is amazing. Of course, everything by Leone is great. Um, you know, but the Spiritism in the Arts brings this perspective of art that goes beyond the physical and how. So going back here to Spiritism in the Arts, again, the Spirit Massenet, he mentions something interesting, that the in the spiritual world, the spirits not only besides these vibrations, also there is a color effect as well. So spirits also perceive music as color. So it's very interesting, and depending on the kind of emotions that music will bring, there's a different color that's going to be also. So it is also interesting for us to see this other characteristic of music that goes beyond our physical eye, our physical ears, right? And of course, physical eyes and physical perceptions. So he mentions that, like for instance, a blue, right? To passion. So yeah, so Masada explains to us that blue is related to love, red to passion, and yellow something in between. So, for instance, if the spirit perceives music as a light pink, right? So it is a combination of between red and yellow. So it means it is a love that is not is less intense. However, that love that takes is not like intense as a passion, but is a love that is more like a long-term kind of love sensation. So it's kind of that these colors, it's really interesting for us to see that these colors, as the spirits perceive them, they provide us feelings and sensations that we know of, but there are some other ones that we still do not perceive. So there is this different way to look at music. In the Spiritus Review of May of 1859, there's a short but very interesting interview with the spirit Mozart. And of course, the question to him was, it was the fifth item in that interview. It's a very short interview. I believe there are only 8 items, 8 questions. And the fifth question to him was, of course, to talk to Mozart, the spirit, you're going to talk about music. So they ask, can the music in the world where you live compare to ours? Okay, so can the music in the spiritual world compare to ours? And he's saying, you would have difficulty understanding it. We enjoy senses that you still don't have. Okay, so it is hard for us to compare our music on earth to the music in the spiritual world, because we lack these senses. We lack this way to perceive these additional, again, these other means to perceive music. In the next question, question number 6 is, we were told that there is a natural universal harmony in your world that we do not know here. again, talking about the spiritual world. And Mozart explains it is true. You create music on earth. Here, the whole nature produces melodious sounds. So again, is this other paradigm? Instead of you having to stroke an instrument and play some tunes, there is this other way to perceive this harmony of the universe that goes around, that is around you, right? Again, this whole universe so harmonious, from the microcosmos to the microcosmos to the macrocosmos. We see this whole harmony, and we do not always perceive it. So, and like I was mentioning before, higher spirits, they can produce these vibrations, and those angelic beings, they can send those to us, and those can travel. I mean, those are very powerful, very subtle, and very soothing, and they are able to traverse the universe and reach the atmosphere of whole worlds. And so it is up to us, right? It is up to us to be in sync. It is up to us. We have the choice to, we have our free will to decide, okay, am I going to be absorbing, I'm going to be in touch with this incredible music, right? These incredible vibrations that is coming from higher up, way high spirits that are reaching Earth, or am I going to close myself to them? And the AC, even there, we have our free will. So in the next 12 minutes, I have some. I'll start concluding my our talk here, and again, I'll be open for us to questions and have a discussion a little bit later. But let me just finalize here. So we see here that so in spiritism, we're just not we as spiritists, we know this is not just one life, right? We have different shots at something that's called life, and that allows us to grow. And as we grow, we open our doors, the doors of our mind, of our spiritual mind, to a knowledge that is more encompassing. And as that our intelligence expands, because we both evolve both morally and intellectually, then we can have a better understanding of what's beautiful. And eventually, we're gonna be able to capture, to perceive this incredible music in the universe that is still escapes us. So the geniuses, the so-called geniuses, going back to spirits who are composers, the genius of music, they have been able to experience a little bit of that kind of that special music. We see here again in the Spiritist Review of 1868, there is the spirit, the composer Rossini as a spirit. So he makes a very, he's an incredible composer, incredible classical composer. But he says here that, hey, I created, in summary, right? He says, I created so many masterpieces, but all I did was just to scrape the surface. He asks, I was able just to capture some of the pearls um, of the universe. He says, and he mentions, use the term, I robbed a little bit of this sacred fire. He said, I robbed some sparks of this sacred fire. And he says, us, right? He's talking about us, composers. They do not create anything that they copy from the great book of nature, and they impress the masses, but the masses don't realize that sometimes they distort the the music. The music's not really the same. So it is hard. Again, he's saying that our brains are still unable to capture, especially as incarnate, all the different variations of music. So, and at this time, we're not at this point. Rossini continues saying, he say, hey, we're not at this point. He says later, much later, right? So again, he's saying as we evolve, we're going to be able to capture this kind of celestial music again. So the Rossini as a spirit now in posthumous works, he has a different paragraph. He explains to us that spiritism, as it moralizes man, I mean humankind, it will affect us. It will affect us in great influence, and will impact our music. So it's saying, talking about spiritism, and pretty much the by spiritism here, the knowledge of a life after death, knowledge that life goes on, that there's a spiritual world. So this type of understanding. So it is going to produce virtuous composers, that will communicate their virtues through this music, right? So it's kind of interesting that, if you think of Rossini, if you think people like Rossini, like Beethoven that we mentioned before, Richard Wagner, we think those people are virtuosos, like Mozart as well. Those spirits are virtuosos, but he's saying no. Whatever music, whatever great composers, I mean, they were great. They, like you mentioned before, they were able to just get a little spark of this sacred fire, just a little bit of spark of the music of the universe, but they're going to be actually virtuosos. The virtuosos are still coming, and there's going to be these virtuosos notion about the spiritual realm and how to better translate that music. Now, on the other side, on the other hand, also the listeners, they're going to be prepared by spiritism, and again, spiritism being the knowledge about the spiritual world, the understanding. Uh, they are also going to perceive better this harmony. So they're going to be better prepared and better in tune to enjoy, not only listen, but enjoy this serious type of music, this more spiritual type of music. And they're going to forget about this frivolous music that we see every day and that are so common among the masses. So, everything that we talked about here shows us a different perspective of music, and that's spiritism. As a spiritism, I can speak as a spiritist. So we see here that the importance of the music that is not just sound, the importance of the music that brings us a message, me be that message as part of the lyric, be it part of the melody. There's something that is going that can be used to either elevate us, help us connect to the spiritual world. And so we gotta, you know, I'll say all of us, right? We have to be selective in what kind of music is being we are listening to, what kind of music we're enjoying, and I should say arts, right? What kind of arts am I enjoying? Am I enjoying? Am I in tune with the kind of art that is very mundane, that is very kind of art that connects me to the spiritual, that kind of art that reminds me that there's so much more. So it's important for us to think, that the importance that music has for us to revigorate us and to provide us some strength in our struggles, and that help us connect ourselves to the spiritual world. And I have 5 more minutes. I'd like to say, make two additional comments. Just for us, also, we talked about the harmony of the universe. So our lives are like symphonies. There is a harmony in our lives that we gotta think of. There is the music that is being played in the whole universe. The whole universe has all these incredible, amazing laws. We understand very few of them, and those laws, they dictate the way galaxies work, but also they dictate on us as well. So let's try to recognize the music in our lives. Meaning, and what I say by that is the harmony of everything that happens, like the old anecdote about King Solomon, about the ring, right? He asks for a ring that will remind him of good times and bad times, and pretty much the ring, the goldsmith produced a ring for him that read, "These two shall pass." So, both the good times and the hard times, they shall pass, because that's how way we are here on earth. But it's important for us to think of this harmony in our lives as we're going through the best of times, great of times. Think, hey, this whole harmony. Of course, when I'm feeling good, I feel, oh my God, I'm harmonious, right? But also for us to realize that when things don't go so well, when we feel that, hey, I'm either hitting rock bottom, or I'm going to hit rock bottom. That's how things are. Let's not forget there is also some kind of a music. There is a symphony that's playing in my life, and how and if I recognize this, trying to, not, it's going to be impossible most of the times for me to read the partiture, but at least recognize, hey, there's a master plan, there's a partiture that has been played, and I gotta follow the music and try to enjoy as much, and recognize the presence of God in my life, both good times and bad times, again in this great harmony. Wow, that's all I had here planned. But let's open up for discussions and talk about uh, whatever everybody has in mind. Oh, Marcia, I cannot hear you, Marcia. I don't know if it's just me.
You're right. Thank you. But I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. As you know, I moved to Nashville, a music city, about 4 months ago. And indeed, music is everywhere, every street. But there's definitely a very mundane type of music. So, very interesting to understand music, spiritual music, our own mundane music, but most important, the call to action to understand how we are playing the symphony in our lives. So thank you for that. Such an enlightening discussion. I really appreciate. I want to tell everyone that we're open for comments and questions. So please send your questions so that Glaucio can talk to them.
Kind of curious about what's coming up.
Yes. So the first one, and I may have to put my glasses on, so sorry. So love the idea that one, all of us can create music, and two, through it, we can contribute to the emotional well-being in our surroundings. Can you give examples of how we can bring harmony and well-being in our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, so I was mentioning before about this whole idea of thoughts and harmony, and using this organizing process of a thought and a harmony as a creative force, right?
Mhm.
And also the power of will and the energy that we vibrate. So with a combination, because everybody, everything starts with the will, be willing to do it.
Mhm.
So now, so to summarize, is as we harmonize our thoughts, as we, in wherever situation we are, the very least we can do is to maintain ourselves in harmony and calm, or at least as calm as we can be, as harmonious we can be, to irradiate those around us. So pretty much for us to be like a beam of positive energy, regardless of where we are. On Earth, we are blessed on Earth with the opportunity to deal with spirits of different levels, creatures, beings like us, who are growing like us, right? In different levels of understanding, different spiritual backgrounds, right? Now, we know about this. We know about our potential to inspire and to produce this harmony, that you can, you can call this spiritual music, but it's our vibrations, our positive vibrations. So if I'm in a situation that in which, let's say, in an office environment, for instance, where we spend, at least one third of our lives, if we're talking about 8-hour shifts, right? Some people work more, but if you're in that environment, you at least have an opportunity to be a point, a focus of peace, wherever, in that particular work environment or family, and be this harmonious music by your thoughts, by your feelings of harmony, and by that positive energy that you're producing.
Absolutely. I totally love the idea of how we can be that beacon, right? So that source of light and harmony.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Glaucio. So, another question that came is: we normally use classical music to help us elevate our vibrations. Isn't it an old habit, not allowing us to be so open to new music?
Yeah, it's interesting because wherever you read, right, in the Spiritism doctrine. Now, I love classical music, so I'm gonna give a biased answer. Uh, but wherever you read in the literature, spiritual literature, nobody says classical music. I haven't heard, right? There could be, but nobody says you gotta listen to classical music. People say music, right? And what they say, whatever music you listen to, that's not compared to the list to the music in the spiritual world. So if you go, the funny thing with classical music is kind of like you never go. Usually, you would not go wrong, right? It's always be this very harmonious, usually very harmonious, very peaceful. So if you go with classical music, however, there is pieces of music everywhere. There's like and again, that's us. We have our free will to select what kind of music. There's of course there's new age music. If you can listen, love new
Hmm.
age music, jazz music, beautiful harmonious jazz music, pop, blues, of course, popular music. Think about some harmonious popular music. So I would say I will not say it's a habit. I'll say usually you do not go wrong with classical music to harmonize. However, yeah, you know, again, you should all be open to different ideas, and definitely there's beauty. There's beauty in any kind of music you can listen to. I haven't found anything heavy metal, but maybe there's a spiritual heavy metal musician out there. I'm not sure yet.
Awesome. So let's see what's the next question. Um, the idea that we evolve as spirits, music we create will also evolve to less material, mundane topics. Can you perhaps talk a bit about how our feelings and emotions reflect our own spiritual maturity, and as such, how we prefer to surround ourselves with those at the same spiritual maturity as us? I think you talked about it at the end of your topic on resonance, right?
Right, right. So it's a question of affinity,
Hmm.
and again, um, the same way as we progress, we see life from a higher from a higher perspective, right? These petty, our problems. I mean, to us, our problems here on Earth, they're big problems. But as we get more evolved, as we get morally, intellectually, uh, uh, more perfected, then we have a different perspective, and we can see sometimes a situation that apparently is very serious from a mundane standpoint, as something that is, that's just a passing phase, right? So, and that based on what I read, that's what happens with our music as well. So, if us, right, and each one of us is a spirit with his and hers and her his and her own spiritual experiences, and those experiences help build us who we are. Believe it or not, we're the best version. We are the best. We're like the version 3.0 or 4.0 of whatever we were before, right? So, and as we evolve, we start to focus less. So sometimes you see, sometimes we have opportunity just to, if you flip through the radio stations, you're gonna see music that talks about very bad things, right? There's music that's literally that talks about below mundane things,
Hmm.
right? It talks about use of drugs, excess money. Again, people, we have our free will to check, to select whatever music we like. We see music that talks about love, right? We see music that talks about very ephemeral love, and then we see music that talks about love that lasts forever,
Yeah.
right? And there is a composer in Brazil, not a musician in Brazil. He's a spiritist. His name is Nando Cordel, and all most Brazilians would know Nando Cordel from our, from Marcia and my. No, he's not. He's from our region, not from our state, but in Brazil. But it is funny that he's a spiritist, and his music is all about love. And he was here talking about whole story of how he became a spiritist. It was like a comparison between his music and his journey as a musician, as a journey as a spiritist. as well. So pretty much, what it boils down to is that we feel attracted, we feel affinity for those things that appeal to us, depending on our level, and we're gonna feel affinity for those who are close to us, like you mentioned, Marcia, those who are in tune to us, right? So yeah, I mean, if it's a very, if it's a particular concert, you're gonna see people who appreciate that kind of music and could have possibly some kind of a background that is similar to mine. And by background, I don't mean just in this life, but from previous lives. So, I mean, it all boils down again to our level of understanding, how we expand our minds, and affinity as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love the reference to Nando Cordell specifically, and his own journey, understanding spiritism, his own understanding of it, but also how it's translated into music. So absolutely. Let's see if we have another one. Another question that we have is, a music genius would have to reincarnate without their music abilities in order to evolve in other areas. Is this correct? Can you comment?
I mean, as our progress involves us not only just focusing in one area. So, if you're a music genius, that means that you are so good at it, right? You're like you're like beyond the master. So two things, right? Definitely, even though he's a genius here by our earthly standards, that spirit will have an opportunity to continue. Again, our music still very. If a spirit is identified as a genius as reincarnated here amongst us, that means that he can perceive this music better than us. But that doesn't mean that he is like at the top of his game as far as the music it can get, as music can be, like Rossini was mentioning. So it is possible that a spirit can be reincarnate again in this planet, or maybe have an opportunity to go to different planets to continue advancing on that. However, our evolution is not focused. It's not like, when you go to school and you go through progress through school and then you decide to go beyond, you go to graduate school and be, and get a PhD or a doctorate in one area. You become so specialized in that area, right? That you learn a lot. You become the subject matter expert in one field, right? So our evolution is not like that. We're going to all become, subject matter experts in different fields. So it is possible that the spirit would come back in a different, he may ask, right? We all, he might ask to come in and to evolve in some other aspects. I dare say this is Glaucio's opinion, that just like in anything else in life, however, just like anything else in life, and this is my opinion, this is me speaking. So whatever we learn in one field helps us in other fields as well, right? There's a connection. Believe it or not, there's a connection between music and math. The way for instance, on a guitar, the way the strings are set up, the notes are set up. There's a mathematical logic behind it. You can actually come up with a mathematical model for the waves, for the notes, and for the melody. So it's possible that a musician may come and learn about mathematics, and he's gonna get some of that learning from mathematics, from music, and help him with mathematics. And that can be with anything. Maybe a mathematician now wants to learn about music, right? So it's kind of like, I mean, this is me expressing my opinion, but I'll say it is possible. I mean, we'll have to evolve in different fields as well. But my personal opinion, this is personal opinion, is that whatever you learn from one experience, from one field, you can apply and help you grow.
Absolutely. The idea that we are immortal souls, right? So it's
Uh-huh.
awesome. So Mark Carlos, hi Mark, thank you for the question. He mentioned that your thoughts as to the challenges of low energies and low morality in much of today's popular music and artists, for example, rap and heavy metal. How best to communicate to young people, for example, the negative aspect of this music? Any thoughts?
So I have two thoughts, right? So as parents, and as parents, as mentors, somehow, even if we're not parents, we're somehow mentors, directly or indirectly, of the young. And our example is always best, right? So by us, you know, exposing them to different kinds of music, for them to expand them, expose them to different options of music, it helps them see different, uh, see that there's just not rap or heavy metal. So, showing that, hey, there are other alternatives, and those alternatives are neat, right? And are very fulfilling. Now, what I learned as a parent is that whatever you tell your kids, they're going to do the opposite. So if you keep telling your kids, hey, don't listen to rap, don't listen to heavy metal, what's going to happen? They're going to listen to the heaviest metal, and the rap with the most explicit lyrics. I mean, that's part of a spirit going through that process of adolescence goes through, is that process of independence, right? So, I mean, sometimes exposing, and talking to them and making them think, right? And say, hey, this song talks about drug usage, but this is not something that is very constructive, or that heavy metal song is talking about death. And so, pretty much, having this conversation and be patient, because, yeah, if you tell them don't do something, they're going to do it. And uh, we're immortal souls, right? So whatever seeds, as parents, or as mentors, or in whatever position we are, there's always somebody that's looking up to you. There's somebody always observing, and children and teenagers, they're always observing us more than we perceive. So again, having, producing a positive message, showing the positive of the world, the positive music, the positive message in everything, especially of our actions. And again, we're all immortal spirits, like we were discussing just now, right, Marcia? So if we think that, hey, oh my God, I failed as a parent, I failed as a mentor, I failed as a big brother or big sister, just remember that we're all immortal souls, that we're all learning, and that spirit that I try to help in whatever position I have, whatever seeds, whatever positive seeds we plant in them, be them good music, be them the good attitude, be them morality, everything's going to sprout, if not in this life, but in a future opportunity.
Absolutely. Great thoughts on that. I think that we only have time for this last question, Glaucio. So the question here is, the book by Leon Denis inspires us to think about color theory or color combination, and how music can touch this multitude of emotions we feel. Can you talk a little bit more about the colors of music? I believe from your talk that you mentioned blue, red, yellow, primary colors, right? And the combinations they bring as it relates to emotion. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, but it's funny because in the book itself, believe it or not, Massenet talks very little about it. He only mentions it in one paragraph or two. That And he talks about the colors as a manifestation, right? So it's more like an additional perception of color that, to us we cannot perceive as incarnate spirits. We only find, to us, music is only intensity and vibration. And in the spiritual world, there's this all other ways to enjoy music. There's this moral effect. There's this representation as color. um, I dare say that this is just another way for music to be expressed and be enjoyed in the spiritual world as well, right? And pretty much, he mentioned color, but that's the way it's perceived. Of course, color for us, the way we understand color is a pretty much is an electromagnetic wave, right, with a particular frequency in the visual in the visible spectrum. So what he's talking about in the spiritual world is, again, it is a perception. So it's kind of like it's like part of this combination of this whole combination of sensations that brings to the spirit, and amongst them is this characteristic of color. And yeah, so it's kind of like part of, if you want to call, of the package of the sensations that we can that we can understand, that we can feel, the ones we cannot feel here on earth, and the way they are perceived in the spiritual world, and and a lot of them we still cannot understand, comprehend, and of course experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for explanation. In addition to that, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much, Glaucio. And as we come to the end of our talk today, I want to say thank you everyone who were able to be here with us today, watching this live talk, and also those who have been following us on a weekly basis. Please note that every Saturday, which is September 4th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, please don't miss our own Daniel Santos,
Oh
who will
yeah,
be speaking
awesome.
on the topic, the necessity of labor, just before Labor Day week. Glaucio, I would like for you, if you don't mind, to please close our talk today with a prayer.
Oh, thank you, but absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity for us to be here amongst friends and have a conversation about music, but especially to have a conversation of everything, all the phenomena, everything that surrounds us. There is so much that we still don't understand, so much that we still cannot perceive, but everything is so harmonious in your universe. Everything is so harmonious in our lives and promotes growth. Open our eyes, open our eyes for the music in our lives. Open our eyes for the music in our tribulations. Open our eyes for the music that others bring to us. May those who bring us joy, may those who also bring us their music and share their music with us, as with pain, inspire us always in our decisions. We have free will to capture the positive in the universe. Be as music, be as vibrations, be as thought. It's up to us to select how we are connected and to we are connected. May we be the strength to reach out to you always, and to reach out to the spirit, to the higher spirits always. May your peace be with us, bless us, and guide us. So be it.